Right now, tucked away in the back of your kitchen pantry, sits a humble plant that contains the exact same natural defense compounds sold in high-end wellness boutiques for $55 a bottle. You likely purchased it for less than the price of a cup of coffee. It is common oregano. Within its leaves lies a compound called carvacrol, a molecule that has been the subject of hundreds of research papers exploring its natural cleansing and protective properties. The startling reality is that while the modern supplement industry extracts these molecules using industrial solvents and high-pressure machinery, selling them back to you at a 5,000% markup, there is a method of extraction older than any corporation on Earth. It is a secret known to the forest dwellers and the village elders of old, a method that uses nothing more than salt, water, and time to unlock a level of potency that raw herbs simply cannot provide. This ancient protocol takes less than 5 minutes to prepare and costs pennies, yet it transforms a simple garnish into a concentrated traditional preparation. For centuries, our ancestors understood that the kitchen was the original apothecary. They didn't see herbs as mere flavorings. They saw them as vital tools for maintaining the body's natural balance. Today, we have largely forgotten how to interact with these plants. We sprinkle them on our food and hope for the best, unaware that we are barely scratching the surface of their potential. Most people have no idea that they are essentially throwing away the most valuable parts of the plants they buy. To understand the power hidden in your spice rack, we must look at the Lamiaceae family. This includes basil, thyme, rosemary, mint, and oregano. These aren't just garden weeds. They are some of the most biologically active plants known to human history. Basil carries rosmarinic acid and eugenol, the same aromatic molecule that gave traditional clove preparations their legendary status in ancestral wellness. Thyme contains thymol, a compound so respected for its ability to support a clean environment that it has been a staple in hygiene preparations since the 19th century. Then there is rosemary, often burned in ancient halls to support clarity and focus, containing carnosic acid. Every one of these plants shares a complex chemistry built around essential oils and polyphenols. However, there is a barrier between you and these Beneficia biological fortress that has led many to rely on expensive, factory-made capsules. We are going to learn how to bypass that system entirely, using the same microbial allies that humans have partnered with for millennia to create a living, shelf-stable preparation that grows more supportive the longer it sits on your counter. The primary reason many people fail to see the full potential of their kitchen garden is a fundamental biological hurdle that our ancestors spent centuries learning to overcome. To the naked eye, a leaf of basil or a sprig of thyme looks soft and digestible. However, on a microscopic level, every plant cell is constructed like a tiny, fortified bunker. These cell walls are built from complex fibers known as cellulose and pectin materials, so incredibly resilient that the human digestive system, as sophisticated as it is, often struggles to breach them. Inside these fortresses, the plant stores its most valuable treasures, the essential oils, the polyphenols, and the aromatic compounds that define its traditional use. When you sprinkle raw herbs onto a hot dish, you are indeed enjoying their flavor, but you are barely accessing their deeper properties. In the world of traditional herbalism, it was often said that the spirit or the vital essence of the plant was bound within the fiber, waiting for a key to set it free. This concept of the bound essence is why ancient pioneers rarely ate herbs raw for support. They infused them, steeped them, or most effectively, fermented them. Modern science has quantified this ancestral observation through the lens of bioavailability. For example, studies on rosmarinic acid, the primary active constituent found in basil, rosemary, and mint, reveal a startling truth. When consumed in its raw state, only about 1.5% of the compound actually makes it into the body's internal systems. The remaining 98% simply passes through the digestive tract, essentially wasted because our internal chemistry cannot fully dismantle the glycosidic bonds holding these molecules hostage. This gap between consumption and absorption is exactly what the modern supplement industry capitalizes on. They use supercritical carbon dioxide extraction, steam distillation, and powerful ethanol solvents to concentrate these compounds into levels that would be impossible to achieve by chewing on raw leaves alone. They have turned a natural process into a high-tech manufacturing cycle, convincing the public that expensive industrial intervention is the only way to receive the plant's full support. But there is a different path, one that follows the logic of the forest floor rather than the laboratory. Before the advent of modern extraction, traditional cultures relied on the slow, transformative power of natural fermentation to do the work of the factory. They understood that by subjecting herbs to a specific environment of salt and water, they could initiate a biological breakdown that mimics sand in some ways exceeds the most advanced modern equipment. This process isn't just about preserving the plant for the winter months. It is about pre-digesting the fibrous walls. It is about using the power of beneficial microbes to unlock the green blood of the herbs, making their supportive compounds immediately available to the body in a way that raw plants never could be. By moving away from the extract and encapsulate model and returning to the ferment and nourish tradition, we reclaim an ancient autonomy over our own wellness preparations, bypassing the markup of the industrial complex for the simplicity of the glass jar and the wisdom of the hearth. To step into the world of traditional fermentation is to enter a partnership with the invisible world. When you submerge your herbs in a simple salt brine and seal them within the sanctuary of a glass jar, you are not just preserving a plant, you are inviting an ancient army of beneficial organisms to take up residence. Specifically, two species of bacteria, Lactobacillus plantarum and Lactobacillus brevis, begin to dominate this aquatic environment. In the tradition of the hearth, these microbes were never seen, but their presence was recognized by the souring of the air and the rising of tiny silver bubbles. These bacteria are the primary architects of what we call the living protocol. Together, they account for over 70% of the microbial community in any plant-based ferment, and what they achieve within the first 72 hours is nothing short of a biological transformation. These microbes act as microscopic alchemists, secreting a suite of specialized enzymes cellulase, alpha-glucosidase, esterase, and beta-glucosidase that systematically dismantle the plant's defenses. They chew through the stubborn cellulose that our own systems cannot touch, breaking the molecular bonds that hold polyphenols hostage. By converting large, poorly absorbed molecules into smaller, highly bioavailable versions, they essentially perform the hardest part of the digestive process for us. Traditional wisdom often spoke of fermented preparations being pre-digested or refined by the spirits of the air, and modern research confirms this. In studies of herbal infusions, this microbial activity has been shown to increase rosmarinic acid derivatives by up to nearly 5 times, depending on the specific bacterial strain present. Fermented peppermint and lemongrass, for instance, show a staggering increase in total polyphenol content, often exceeding 70% over their raw counterparts. But the most fascinating aspect of this natural protocol is that these bacteria do not just release what is already there. They create entirely new compounds that the raw plant never possessed. For example, Lactobacillus plantarum is known to produce gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, a calming neurotransmitter that supports a peaceful state of mind and general wellness. Your raw basil contains no GABA, but your fermented basil is rich with it. This shift represents a fundamental change in the plant's character. The microbes also produce short-chain fatty acids, which provide vital nourishment for the internal lining of our systems, and bacteriocins, natural antimicrobial peptides that serve as the jar's own guardians, keeping the environment pristine. This is the part of the story the modern industry rarely discusses. Their $51 billion model is built on the assumption that you need their labs to extract these compounds. They offer a static, shelf-stable product that begins to lose its vitality the moment it is bottled. In contrast, your fermented jar is a living, breathing ecosystem that grows more potent and complex as the days pass. To the old herbalists, the bloom of a ferment was a sign that the preparation had reached its peak of supportive strength. It is a dynamic extract that bridges the gap between the garden and the body, utilizing a process that costs almost nothing, but provides a richness that no factory-made capsule can replicate. Long before the first industrial laboratory was constructed, the art of herb fermentation was a cornerstone of human survival and wellness. This was not a fringe discovery made in a modern kitchen. It is one of the oldest systematic practices in recorded history. From the humid forests of the Indian subcontinent to the frozen steppes of Eastern Europe, every major civilization independently discovered that salt, water, and herbs, when left to the wisdom of time, created something far more powerful than the sum of its parts. They didn't have the vocabulary of molecular biology, but they possessed a profound observational understanding of how these natural protocols supported the body's internal harmony. In the Sanskrit medical texts of ancient India, written over 3,000 years ago, practitioners documented the creation of liquid herbal preparations, known as asavas and arishtas. These were sophisticated extracts made by fermenting herbal decoctions with jaggery, a raw cane sugar, inside earthenware pots buried in the earth or stored in cool cellars for months. The ancient practitioners observed that these fermented preparations were absorbed by the body with remarkable speed and required far smaller doses than raw herbs to achieve the same supportive effects. They understood that the fermentation process refined the herbs, removing their harshness and making their vital essence more accessible to the human system. Traveling further east to the Jiahu archaeological site in China's Henan province, researchers uncovered pottery fragments dating back 7,000 years. Analysis revealed residues of fermented rice, honey, and a complex blend of herbs, marking it as one of the oldest known fermented preparations on Earth. This was the birth of what we might call food pharmacologists, the idea that the line between nourishment and a traditional remedy is found in the jar. Similarly, in the Slavic traditions of Eastern Europe, households have long maintained continuous brew crocks of kvass. While often made from rye bread, the most valued versions were infused with mint, thyme, and wild forest herbs. These herb-infused ferments were the primary tool for maintaining digestive wellness and supporting the body through the long, harsh winters of the north. In Korea, the tradition of jangaji involves preserving seasonal herbs and vegetables in soy-based brines, creating a living library of supportive plants that could be accessed year-round. These cultures didn't need a $51 billion industry to tell them how to concentrate plant power. They had the seasonal rhythms and the microbes of their own environment. The modern world has largely traded this ancestral autonomy for the convenience of a plastic bottle, losing the connection to the living nature of these preparations. When we restart our own fermentation jars today, we aren't just following a kitchen trend. We are reawakening a global legacy of survival. We are stepping back into a lineage of hearthkeepers who knew that the most effective way to support the body was to let nature's smallest workers do the heavy lifting before the plant ever reached the lips. To begin your own journey into the art of the hearth, you do not need a laboratory. You need a return to the basics. The beauty of this traditional protocol lies in its profound simplicity, requiring only 3 essential components: fresh herbs, pure water, and salt of the earth. In the traditions of old, living water from natural springs or deep wells was preferred because it lacked the harsh additives found in modern municipal systems. Today, we achieve this by using filtered or non-chlorinated water, as the cleansing agents in standard tap water are specifically designed to hinder the very microbial life we wish to invite into our jar. Similarly, the salt must be unrefined and non-iodized, such as sea salt or kosher salt. The iodine added to common table salt acts as a biological barrier, effectively sabotaging the natural transformation process before it can even begin. Our first protocol focuses on the soft leaf herbs, the basil, mint, and cilantro, that often wilt within days of being brought home. To prepare them, gently rinse the leaves under cool water to remove the dust of the garden, but do not scrub them, for their surfaces carry the very Lactobacillus cultures that will fuel the transformation. Roughly tear or chop the leaves, an act that traditionally was said to release the spirit of the plant by breaking the surface tension of the cell walls. Pack these into a clean glass jar and prepare your brine. The golden ratio for these delicate plants is a 2% salt concentration, which is roughly 1 teaspoon of salt dissolved into 1 cup of water. This creates the sweet spot, where our microbial allies thrive, while less desirable elements are kept at bay. Pour this over the herbs, ensuring they are fully submerged. In the language of the elders, the water is the seal. Anything that floats above the surface is exposed to the air and may invite unwanted growth, so we use a weight, perhaps a small stone or a glass pucto. Keep the herbs safely protected beneath the liquid. When dealing with the hardy herbs like oregano, thyme, and rosemary, the protocol shifts slightly to account for their more fortified nature. These plants are the heavyweights of the Lamiaceae family, containing dense concentrations of aromatic oils that can actually slow down our microbial allies if left unmanaged. For these, we strip the leaves from the woody stems and lightly bruise them, perhaps by rolling them between our palms to awaken their fragrance. We use a slightly stronger brine, about 1.5 teaspoons of salt per cup of water, creating a 3% solution. This extra salt provides a supportive buffer that allows the microbes to work steadily against the plant's robust natural defenses. Once the jar is covered with a simple cloth or a loose lid, to allow for the release of natural gases, the transformation begins. By the second or third day, you will see the breath of the Jartni bubbles rising to the top. The water will turn a milky, golden hue, a traditional sign that the microbes have successfully breached the cell walls. By day 7, the preparation reaches its peak of traditional readiness, resulting in a living extract that is far more supportive to the body than the raw plant could ever be. The ultimate expression of this ancestral practice is what the old hearthkeepers might call the master preparation, a single jar, that captures the collective synergy of the entire herb garden. To create this unlimited jar, we blend the specific strengths of the Lamiaceae family, 1 cup of basil for its traditional link to clarity, 1/2 cup each of oregano and thyme for their legendary cleansing properties, and 1/4 cup each of rosemary and mint to support the body's natural vitality. By combining these together, you are creating a complex profile of carvacrol, thymol, and rosmarinic acid that would require a small fortune in separate laboratory-produced capsules to replicate. Roughly chop this botanical assembly and pack it into a quart-sized glass jar. The brine for this master blend is slightly more robust, using 1 tablespoon of sea salt dissolved in 2 cups of pure water. Once the herbs are submerged and weighted, this living preparation requires 7 to 10 days of quiet transformation at room temperature away from the direct light of the sun. When the bubbling slows and the brine takes on a pleasantly tart, savory aroma, you have created something the modern wellness industry, worth over $50 billion, cannot easily package: a living, bioavailable extract that is actually more potent than the day it was started. In the world of traditional remedies, both the transformed herbs and the brine itself were considered precious. The fermented leaves, now soft and infused with a savory depth, can be integrated into daily nourishment, a tablespoon added to a simple bowl of grains or a fresh salad. The brine, however, was often treated as the essence of the protocol. A traditional serving of 1 or 2 tablespoons taken in the morning was believed to support the internal terrain with a flood of beneficial microbes, organic acids, and free polyphenols. Unlike modern supplements that begin to oxidize and degrade the moment they are manufactured, this jar is a stable, self-regulating ecosystem. When stored in the cool darkness of a refrigerator, the cold simply lulls the bacteria into a slow slumber, allowing the preparation to remain vibrant for 6 months or longer. However, we must respect the potency of these traditional preparations with a discerning eye. The primary rule of the hearth is that the water must remain the seal. If a stray leaf escapes the brine and encounters the air, it may develop a fuzzy mold, at which point the entire batch should be returned to the earth. A thin white film on the surface, known as cum yeast, is a harmless sign of a living ferment and can simply be skimmed away. Furthermore, because these preparations are truly biologically active, they are not intended to replace modern facilities or the advice of a specialist, particularly for those navigating specific internal imbalances or taking conventional support, like blood thinners. We are reclaiming a lost history of self-sufficiency, where a $2 bunch of herbs and a pinch of salt transform into a shelf-stable, probiotic-rich concentrate. It is a quiet rebellion against the extract industry. Return to the realization that the most powerful tools for wellness aren't found in a factory, but in a simple glass jar sitting on your own kitchen counter,